अस्सलाम वालेकुम बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम तो today's topic is phases of Pakistan foreign policy. तो basically what is foreign policy, हम पहले definition से start करेंगे and then we are gonna study the phases one by one. There are basically 7 phases, so वो बाद में जाके पढ़ेंगे. तो basically foreign policy क्या है? फॉरेन पॉलिसी एक कंट्री की पॉलिसी होती है एंड दीज आर द जनरल ऑब्जेक्टिव्स that basically guide the activities and relationship of one state in its interaction with other state. एक कंट्री दूसरे कंट्री के साथ रिलेशन जो रखती है, डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशंस होते हैं इनके, तो उसमें जो गाइडेंस प्रोवाइड करता है वो फॉरेन पॉलिसी होती है एक कंट्री की. और फॉरेन पॉलिसी इज़ आल्सो द नेम ऑफ रनिंग ऑफ कंट्रीज अफेयर्स. or it helps in maintaining relationship between one country to between among the countries. ठीक है. तो phases of Pakistan's foreign policy we are gonna study the introduction. और इसके अंदर पाकिस्तान की जो फॉरेन पॉलिसी है वो इस तरह डिज़ाइन की गई थी दैट Pakistan was the major participant in the global efforts to curb transactional terrorism, which was initiated after the terrorist attack in the US in वो तो 2001 ये 9/11 का जो अटैक था. and this terrorist attack it enhanced Pakistan's strategic relevance for the major powers, and that was especially for the US, which cultivated Pakistan for combating terrorism and ensuring peace and stability in the post-Taliban Afghanistan. अब जो ये तो पता चल गया ना कि पाकिस्तान was a major participant. Now the Pakistan's foreign policy and its geostrategic position and role in the international and regional politics has varied over time. So because its foreign policy is never static, it's dynamic in nature, and Pakistan recognizes that it is not possible to stay in isolation in the present day interdependence and complex international system. तो जाहिर है पाकिस्तान को interact करना होगा. It needs to interact with other states and international regional organization and supranational actors in order to protect and promote its national interest and sovereign identity. So major focus of Pak foreign policy is its security against external and internal challenges to its national identity and territorial integrity and independence. ज़ाहिर बात है एक कंट्री अपनी वो बनाती है फॉरेन पॉलिसी, उसको अपनी कंट्री के इंटरेस्ट को, इंडिपेंडेंस को, सॉवरेनिटी को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए वो अपने दूसरे स्टेट्स के साथ रिलेशन बनाती है. तो पाकिस्तान ऑल्सो हाईलाइट्स सॉवरेन इक्वालिटी ऑफ स्टेट्स. इट also bilateralism, mutuality of interest and non-interference in each other's domestic affairs. And Pakistan also maintains a strong faith in principles enunciated by UN Charter and takes an active part in deliberations of the UN and other international and regional organizations. So yeah. Other leading foreign policy goals of Pakistan include support for the right of self-determination. आप सबको पता है, for the subjugated nations, and opposition to the apartheid and remnants of colonialism. पीसफुल रेजोल्यूशन है, इंटरस्टेट डिस्प्यूट्स हैं, आर्म कंट्रोल्स एंड न्यूक्लियर प्रोमोशन ऑफ पीस एंड स्टेबिलिटी थ्रू इंटरनेशनल एंड रीजनल कोऑपरेशन. पाकिस्तान इन सब चीज़ों को सपोर्ट करता है एंड दीज आर बेसिकली द मेन गोल्स ऑफ पाक फॉरेन पॉलिसी. और प्रमोशन ऑफ पीस एंड स्टेबिलिटी जो है ना, ये भी है एक फॉरेन पॉलिसी गोल. तो दीज ये जो जितने भी चेंजेस है या पाक फॉरेन पॉलिसी हैव वेरिड ओवर टाइम, ये जो है ना, दीज चेंजेस हैव हेल्प पाकिस्तान टू आइडेंटिफाई द मेजर फेजेस इन पाक फॉरेन पॉलिसी. तो अभी हम ये पढ़ेंगे एन ओवरव्यू ऑफ पाक फॉरेन पॉलिसी. ये 1947 से 2001 ऑनवर्ड्स. अब ये इसके डिफरेंट फेजेस हैं एंड वी आर गोइंग टू स्टडी दीज फेजेस वन बाय वन. तो ये जो फ़ेज़ 1 है, ये दिस इज़ एक्सप्लोरेशन एंड फ्रेंडशिप विद ऑल, एंड दिस वाज बिटवीन 1947 to 53. तो And then it's phase 2, it's alignment with the West, and then transition phase है bilateralism and non-alignment, that is phase 4. Then phase 5 में Afghanistan and partnership with the US. phase 6 में है post Cold War era and Pak's dilemma. And then it's phase 1 से 2001 onwards, which is counter terrorism. तो ये है हमारा lecture, and our lecture would be based on these following phases. अब हम शुरू करते हैं फ़ेज़ 1, विच इज़ एक्सप्लोरेशन एंड फ्रेंडशिप विद ऑल. तो ये इसके पॉइंट्स हैं, मतलब फाउंडेशन ऑफ पाक फॉरेन पॉलिसी, रिलेशन विद इंडिया, रिलेशन विद अफगानिस्तान, विद सिक्योरिटी इम्पेरेटिव्स, रिलेशन विद यूएसए यूएसएसआर, रिलेशन विद मुस्लिम कंट्रीज़. अगर हम फाउंडेशन ऑफ पाक फॉरेन पॉलिसी की बात करें तो दिस इज़ वन ऑफ द मतलब इसमें हमारे गोल्स भी हाईलाइट होते हैं कि फाउंडेशन पाक फॉरेन पॉलिसी की फाउंडेशन किस पे है और गोल्स क्या है. तो ये कायदे आज़म की सेइंग्स हैं. कायदे आज़म हैज़ सेड दैट आवर फॉरेन पॉलिसी इज़ वन ऑफ द फ्रेंडलीनेस एंड गुड विल टुवर्ड्स nations of the world, and we do not cherish any aggressive designs against any other country or nation, and we believe in principle of honesty and fair play in national and international dealings, and are prepared to make the utmost contribution and promotion of peace, prosperity amongst the nation, and Pakistan will never be found lacking in extending its material and moral support to the oppressed and suppressed people of the world, and in upholding the principles of the UN Charter. ये मैंने आपको पहले भी briefly बता दिया था कि बस promotion of goodwill है और honesty है and peace and stability among nations, or Pakistan would always be there for its support to other oppressed and suppressed people. So this is the saying of Qaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who was the founder of Pakistan. And then after its creation, Pakistan joined UN on September 13, 1947. And then during its initial year, Pakistan had developed its ambassador level relations with US and USSR, and then Pak also stayed in Commonwealth. Or now this is relations with India. जैसे कि आप सबको पता है कि अर्ली ईयर्स ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस वर डोमिनेटेड बाय पाकिस्तान्स प्रॉब्लम्स विद इंडिया. क्या प्रॉब्लम्स थे? रिवर डिस्प्यूट्स था, इकॉनमी थी, रिफ्यूजी प्रॉब्लम था, बोथ प्रॉब्लम्स थे, बाउंड्री डिस्प्यूट्स थे. तो on one hand, तो efforts to introduce a new state to the world community, and on the other hand, these problems were dominated, and most of these problems were basically the product of partition process. And the problems it developed with India were were immediate aftermath of independence, which left an indelible impact on its foreign policy. तो it basically developed a distrust into the पाक इंडिया relations. और अफ़गानिस्तान इंडिया के साथ तो वैसे भी मतलब a hand of friendship बनाया गया था, बट देयर वाज अ कश्मीर इशू. आउटब्रेक ऑफ फर्स्ट कश्मीर वॉर हुई थी 1947 से 48 में. एंड देन रिलेशंस विद अफ़गानिस्तान में, अब अफ़गानिस्तान क्लेम्स वर ऑन पाकिस्तानी टेरिटरी. ये जो NWF, उस टाइम तो NWFP था, because it refused to recognize Pakistan's sovereignty over NWFP and Balochistan. एंड देन रिलेशंस विद USA एंड USSR था कि मतलब इसमें अपॉर्चुनिटी टू मेक अलाइंस विद वन ऑफ दीज स्टेट्स. एंड सोवियत यूनियन ने इनवाइट किया था पाकिस्तान के फर्स्ट प्राइम मिनिस्टर लियाकत अली ख़ान को फॉर एन ऑफिशियल विजिट, बट इंस्टेड लियाकत अली ख़ान विजिटेड US इन 1950. आप टाइम देख ले, मतलब 1947 से 53 है, तो इन 1950 लियाकत अली ख़ान विजिटेड US. And then relations with Muslim countries, so some Muslim countries ignored Pakistan's initiative to unite Muslim states. Pakistan basically चाहता था ना कि वो एक अच्छे cordial relation develop करे. Pakistan attached immense importance to relation with Muslim countries, and it actively championed the cause of Muslims all over the world, and worked towards promoting harmony and cooperation among states, among the Muslim states. लेकिन ये जो India, Indonesia and Egypt था, they had strong reservation about Pakistan's effort in promoting unity in this Muslim world, and Afghanistan was also not prepared to endorse Pakistan's effort. लेकिन however Pakistan फिर भी it was successful and able to cultivate cordial relation with Iran, Turkey and Saudi Arabia, and so. Okay, so phase two was alignment with the West. This was between 1953 to 62, and these are the following points of phase two, Pakistan's foreign policy. So basically, why Pakistan entered into an alignment with the West? It was because that the second phase of Pakistan foreign policy was characterized by transition from an independent foreign policy to a multifaceted alignment with the West, where Pak entered into a number of security arrangements with the West, and that was the only source where which entangled Pakistan into Cold War, and that Cold War, आप सबको पता है, it was between the two power blocks. USSR was with the communist ideology and USA having the capitalist ideology. तो ये दो power blocks थे and the world was divided into two power blocks. So Pak when entered into alignment with the US, ये जो West है ये that's referring towards the US. तो यहाँ पे Pakistan received grant assistance and economic and military assistance from the US, but it was just because of that Pakistan was having some security concerns primarily from India and secondarily from Afghanistan. So within the regional context, ये जो पाकिस्तान था, it was having some security threats. So तो अपने आप को secure करने के लिए it went with the alignment with the US. तो फिर coming towards the second point, it's mutual defense assistance agreement. और ये वही बात है कि यूएस ने जो है असिस्टेंस प्रोवाइड की थी पाकिस्तान को. इसके दो रीज़न्स थे पर्टिकुलरली. था कि पाकिस्तान इस अपनी मतलब it would enable Pakistan to maintain its international security, and second was its self defense. तो ये था. Then Pakistan joined this CETO, which was the Manila Pact and the Baghdad Pact. CENTO ये जो था ना, इसको सेंटो बाद में कर दिया था, मतलब सेंट्रल ट्रीटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन आफ्टर द इराक विड्रॉल. और ये जो सीटो था ना, तो ये दिस इज़ साउथ ईस्ट एशियन ट्रीटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, और इसके अंदर थे ऑस्ट्रेलिया, फ्रांस, ग्रेट ब्रिटेन, न्यूजीलैंड, पाकिस्तान, फिलीपींस, थाईलैंड और यूएस. और दोनों का ऑब्जेक्ट, दोनों जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस थी, इसका यही ऑब्जेक्टिव था कि टू रेजिस्ट अटैक एंड काउंटर सबवर्जन एक्टिविटीज़ एंड टू प्रोमोट कॉपरेशन फॉर इकोनॉमिक प्रोग्रेस. और इन्होंने प्लेज किया था कि मतलब एन आर्म्ड एग्रेशन और अ थ्रेट टू वन स्टेट वुड बी अ थ्रेट टू ऑल. तो इन्होंने कहा था कि मतलब हम सबको सब कंट्रीज़ एक दूसरे को प्रोटेक्शन प्रोवाइड करेंगे. देन द सेकेंड लास्ट पॉइंट ऑफ दिस स्लाइड इज़ डिफेंस एंड इकोनॉमिक असिस्टेंस फ्राम द यूएस. इसके अंदर इसको बहुत ये बायलेटरल असिस्टेंस थी फ्रॉम द यूएस, और ये रिसीव हुई थी पाकिस्तान को इन मार्च 1959. इसके पर्पस जो था ना, वही था प्रिजर्वेशन ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस एंड इंटीग्रिटी ऑफ पाकिस्तान. एंड द सेकेंड पॉइंट वाज promotion of economic development, जिधर पाक रिसीव्ड ग्रांट असिस्टेंस ऑफ वर्थ $650 US million थे, एंड अदर क्रेडिट फैसिलिटीज़ वाज वर्थ $55 million. तो ये बहुत ज़्यादा था उस टाइम, मतलब काफ़ी ज़्यादा था. तो फिर इन रिटर्न पाकिस्तान रेसिप्रोकेटेड बाय प्रोवाइडिंग द एयर बेस ऑफ बड़ा बेर. और ये फील्ड मार्शल अयूब खान के टाइम पे हुआ था, एंड वेयर अयूब खान वाज एबल टू डेवलप स्ट्रॉन्ग रिलेशन विद यूएस. तो इस टाइम पे भी कहा जाता था कि मतलब पाकिस्तान वाज द मोस्ट अलाइड अलाई ऑफ यूएस. तो द लास्ट पॉइंट इज़ कॉस्ट ऑफ अलाइनमेंट विद द वेस्ट. तो इसमें था कि मतलब ऑफ कोर्स इफ़ यू आर गोइंग टुवर्ड्स द यूएस, देयर वर टू पावर ब्लॉक्स, वन वाज यूएसएसआर एंड द अदर वाज यूएस. इफ़ यू आर गोइंग टुवर्ड्स यूएस, that's obvious that USSR will be our enemy. The Soviet leaders were disturbed and they adopted two types of strategies against Pakistan. One was that the Soviet leaders made heavy criticism on Pak's alignment with US, because Pakistan was using and it was providing its air base to US. against the Soviet, and it was near that Afghanistan. And the other strategy was that they extended support to India on Kashmir issue, and they announced its legitimate right and also supported Afghanistan against Pakistan. तो ये सोवियत का जो strategy थी against Pakistan थी, and then Pak faced heavy criticism by the Soviet leaders. So it was all about alignment with the West, and this was between 1953 to 62. So this was all. Okay, so now we are on phase 3, which is the transition phase of Pakistan's foreign policy, and this is the third phase. And the first point is rethinking about the alignment policy. Now, why Pakistan was rethinking about its foreign policy? Because due to the cost of alignment with the West, we have studied in the previous slide, and relation with China were strong throughout from the beginning, because Pakistan maintained a safe distance from China, and its policy on seating of China in the UN, and so relations were strong with China, and then Pakistan was rethinking about its alignment policy. It was rethinking because Pak's foreign policy makers जो थे ना, they began to review their alignment with the US in the early 60s, जो पिछला phase था, and strange manifested in their relations. The two major reasons were, there were two reasons, and these were that Pakistan was perturbed, it was disturbed by the Soviet threat of retaliation when it downed an American Sepai plane U-2, which was taken off from Badaber. And second, that the importance of land bases declined. Pakistan की जो land strategic वो थी ना, importance, that was declined because the US developed an submarine, a nuclear submarine, which was fitted with the missile. And then the US and other western states, they rushed weapons and military equipments to India after there was a China India border, Sino-Indian border war in 1962. And Ayub Khan, he pleaded to the US, but the US continued with its policy of cultivating India in total disregard to Pakistan concerns. उन्होंने बिल्कुल पाकिस्तान को डिसरिगार्ड किया और उन्होंने इंडिया की हेल्प की, बिकॉज देयर वाज द फर्स्ट कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंडिया इन चाइना इन 1962, एंड दिस पीरियड इज़ बिटवीन 1962 to 71. And then Pakistan was supplied with military equipments in 1950s only, when it joined the US sponsored military pacts, but India was not there, and India never tried to make relation with US. It always had relations with the Soviet Union, the USSR. And then these pacts incurred diplomatic costs for Pakistan and in its relation with developing countries and number of Muslim countries. However, Pakistan was able to improve relation with the Soviet Union. कैसे इम्प्रूव की कि Pakistan was greatly disappointed with the US change in policy, and Pakistan then took a number of steps to improve its relation with the Soviet Union and China during the 1961 and 63. And Pakistan and Soviet Union entered into a number of agreements for the economic and technical cooperation, and then the Soviet Union in the mid 1960s adopted a balanced approach towards Pakistan and India disputes, including the Kashmir problem. Pakistan और इंडिया का हमेशा कश्मीर इशू ही जो प्रॉब्लम था ना वही रहा है. And then the USSR urged the two sides to settle their problems, and so Pakistan was able to develop good relations with USSR. And then Pakistan, the ties between the US and Pakistan were diminished. Why they were diminished? Because due to the US was unhappy over Pakistan's effort to improve. बेसिकली पाकिस्तान ने जो सोवियत के साथ रिलेशन इम्प्रूव किए ना, तो इधर जो है ना US got angry and it was unhappy over Pakistan's effort to improve its relation with the Soviet Union. And then this divergence between the relation between the two states were widened, and as Pakistan was unable to invoke any security arrangements with the US during the course of its war and with India in September 1965. So yeah, improving relations with China, Pakistan improved rapidly. It improved its relation during the same period, and then the Pak China, both countries signed several agreements in 1963 to expand their bilateral relations, and this was the time that Pakistan began to plead for the seating of China in the UN, and then in the UN, and Pakistan always supported China in its effort to neutralize the American effort to isolate it at its international level. And then both the leaders from both countries, China and Pakistan, met, and then they attached immense importance to the bilateral relations. Now the next point is that relation with India. So it always continued to be characterized by conflicting and mutual distrust. Why? Because of Kashmir issue. There was always a Kashmir issue, and it has always been the major stumbling block in normalizing the relation between the two countries. And then Pakistan and India were engaged in three wars during the this period, which was one of the war was Ran of Kuch, which was in 1965 May. It was in April-May month, and then there was a full blown war in September 1965, and then there was the East Pakistan separation in November December 1971, and then East Pakistan emerged as an independent state of Bangladesh. The last point of phase 3, the transition phase, is that crisis in East Pakistan and international response. The independence of this East Pakistan, separation of East Pakistan was basically a huge setback by the East Pakistan separation, and then the Soviet were really disappointed by Pakistan's response to the Asian collective security plan. The US and China then did not endorse Pakistan's military action in East Pakistan. So this was all about phase 3, the transition phase. Acha, to phase 4 is bilateralism and non-alignment. It was between 1972 to 79, and the first point of this phase is Pak-India relation. अच्छा, bilateralism and non-alignment में just because Pakistan shaped its policy of bilateralism and non-alignment during this phase, and during this time period, Pakistan withdrew from Commonwealth and then C2 in 1972, and then Pakistan diversified, and Pakistan then became a member of non-allied. ये जो नाम होता है ना NAM, मतलब non-allied member. So in 1979, because Pak-US relation had sharp differences, and then Pakistan and India relation were going towards improvement, because Pakistan and India relations were finally getting better during this phase, because after the formation of Bangladesh, Pakistan recognized Bangladesh in February 1974, which was on the eve of second Islamic Summit conference, and then Pakistan tried to strengthen its relation with major powers. क्या थे? China था and USSR था. Then Pakistan and the Muslim world में था कि Pakistan's relation with Muslim states, particularly the states of Middle East जो थे ना, they touched new heights of cordiality and trust. The Gulf region जो था, they extended support, economic assistance and support, and diplomatic support to Pakistan, and these relations with the Muslim countries served Pakistan's diplomatic, economic and security needs in the post 1971 period जो था. Okay, so phase 5 में था. This is the phase 5 of Pakistan's foreign policy. It was Afghanistan and partnership with the US in 1980 to 1990. These 10 years में जो था ना, Pakistan supported Afghanistan in the Soviet invasion. Why? Because Soviet invaded Afghanistan, and Soviet military intervention in Afghanistan on December 27, 1979 was the event of far-reaching the geopolitical ramification. अब जो सोवियत ने इन्वेट किया अफ़गानिस्तान को, So Pakistan demanded the withdrawal of Soviet troops from Afghanistan and supported the Afghan groups described as Afghan Mujahideen. Pak also hosted Afghan refugees during the war, and Pakistan Pakistan viewed this intervention as a violation of independence and sovereignty of a neighboring non-allied and Muslim state by a superpower. So Pakistan felt threatened by the massive Soviet military presence in the neighborhood, and then Pak accommodated over 3 million refugees, Afghan refugees, during the military intervention in Afghanistan. Um, ये तो सोवियत इन्वेजन ऑफ अफगानिस्तान था. देन रिवाइवल ऑफ पाक यूएस रिलेशन में अफगान वॉर प्रूव्ड a turning point in Pak-US relation, which moved from lowest point of 1979 to close political, economic, and security ties, and many pacts were signed. फिर था पाक चाइना रिलेशन, वो तो स्ट्रॉन्ग ही थे. पाक चाइना रिलेशंस वर स्ट्रॉन्ग, एंड देन पाकिस्तान एंड द OIC, पाकिस्तान ट्राई टू मेंटेन कॉर्डियल रिलेशन विद द मुस्लिम स्टेट्स. एंड देन पाकिस्तान इंडिया अ पॉलिसी ऑफ डायलॉग, वो इस तरह था कि पाकिस्तान एंड इंडिया टुक अ इनिशिएटिव टू रिवाइव द dialogue, and then the prime ministers of both the countries visited, and Pak India relations were marked by simultaneous persuasions of positive and negative interactions. अच्छा, तो इसमें जो है ना ये जेनीवा अकॉर्ड साइन हुआ था बिटवीन पाकिस्तान, USSR एंड अफगानिस्तान, and these documents were signed and they were known as Geneva Accord for the peaceful settlement of dispute. These were the UN peace talks. तो इसके जो aims थे, so these were Soviet withdrawal of troops. The second was no intervention in Afghanistan internal affairs, and then the third was return of Afghan refugees to Afghanistan, and then the fourth was international guarantee of non-interference. So after this, the signing of Geneva Accord of Afghanistan, then the US shifted its self-interest from Afghanistan, and after the withdrawal of troops, then US imposed heavy sanctions on Pakistan, because Pakistan की जो strategic importance थी ना, that was declined and lowered. Then this disrupted the next 6 years assistance, and Pak was left to cope with intra-Afghan conflict and a pro-Soviet government in Kabul. And then it proved again that US policies are based upon self-interest. US policies were always based upon self-interest. जब भी उसका इंटरेस्ट था पाकिस्तान में, इट प्रोवाइडेड मिलिट्री एंड इकोनॉमिक असिस्टेंस टू पाकिस्तान, एंड जब भी उसका इंटरेस्ट ख़त्म हो जाता था तो इट ऑलवेज इम्पोज्ड सैंक्शंस ऑन पाकिस्तान. तो ये था. एंड देन so these were the post-withdrawal problems. के Pakistan was left with intra-Afghan conflict and a pro-Soviet government to deal with it in Kabul, and Pakistan was all left alone. So so phase 6 is post-Cold War era and Pakistan's dilemma. So it is 1990 to 2001. During this time, Pak faced hard choices in the early 1990s, and the US was no longer willing to undermine Pak's economic development and modernization of its military, because Pak had lost its strategic relevance for the US. So during this time, four major issues dominated Pak foreign policy, and these were another drift in Pak-US relation, continuation of Pak-Afghan problem, insurgency in Kashmir, and then going nuclear explosions हुए थे इस time पे. So another drift in Pak-US relation यही था कि US suspended military sales and economic assistance to Pakistan. Additional economic sanctions were imposed on Pakistan after it exploded nuclear devices. पाकिस्तान ने वो किए थे ना, न्यूक्लियर एक्सप्लोजन्स किए थे on May 28 and 30, 1998. So this led to the discontinuation of economic relation and with the US, and then there were sanctions were applied on some Pakistani institutions and organizations in 2000 and then 2001 and 3 on the pretext of that Pakistan was receiving missile technology from China and Korea. ये allegations लगाए थे US ने. And then there was continuation of Afghanistan problem. So the Afghan problem continued to have to, to have Pakistan during these years, and there were two aspects क्या थे. रिफ्यूजी प्रॉब्लम था. ज़ाहिर है पाकिस्तान ने इतना ज़्यादा अकोमोडेट किया था रिफ्यूजीज़ को. एंड देन द इंस्टॉलेशन ऑफ गवर्नमेंट इन काबुल that could ensure peace and stability in Afghanistan, and Pakistan's efforts to install a pro-Pakistan, however, Mujahideen government in Kabul was not successful. Then there was insurgency in Kashmir. The outbreak of insurgency in Indian administered Kashmir in 1989 added a new dimension of Kashmir problem. कश्मीर में इंसर्जेंसी हो गई थी. ये जो इंडियन ऑक्यूपाइड कश्मीर था 1989 में, तो नए मसले खड़े हो गए थे. इंडिया एंड पाकिस्तान एग्रीड ऑन अ फ्रेमवर्क फॉर द पीसफुल interaction. However, the spirit of this declaration was destroyed when Pak India were engaged in a limited war in Kargil region of Kashmir during 1999, and the last point of this phase is going nuclear. So the last major development in this phase was the decision of India and Pakistan to become overt and nuclear powers. So nuclear explosions किए थे पाकिस्तान ने 28 and 30 May को in reply of India's nuclear explosions. So इसमें था ना कि अगर इंडिया ना करता एक्सप्लोड ये न्यूक्लियर डिवाइसेस, इंडिया ने किए थे 11 मई को और 13 मई को, तो पाकिस्तान कभी भी नहीं जाता इस काम के लिए. तो these explosions were described by Pakistan's leader on ratification of the strategic imbalance in the region caused by Indian nuclear explosions. Sorry. अच्छा, phase 7 is 2001 onwards terrorism. September 11 9/11 का जो अटैक था, it was fight against terrorism. After the 9/11 attacks, the US launched a global war on terror, जिसमें पाकिस्तान had reluctantly supported the US. इसके अंदर relations revive हुए थे, increased US support towards पाकिस्तान हुई थी. US ने बहुत military support provide की थी, but on one side when Pakistan was receiving $15 to $17 billion assistance from the US, so on other hand there was large influx of Afghan refugees into Pakistan, which had destabilized the economy, and Pakistan was forced to join this global war on terror after 9/11 incident, and the internal condition of Pakistan, it came under serious risk. So in 2001, then US lifted all military and economic sanctions, and during this time Pakistan received approximately billions of assistance, military and economic aid from the US. And इसके अंदर relations with China and Russia expanded rapidly. Russia supported Pakistan's effort to contain military group based in areas adjacent to Afghanistan, then its Muslim world and Pakistan. So Pakistan was able to maintain cordial relation with Muslims, especially with those which are in the Gulf region. And then there was transfer of nuclear technology. It was a nuclear proliferation issue, and these और ये जो दानतांत विद इंडिया है ना, तो आफ्टर 9/11 पाक फॉरेन पॉलिसी जो थी, इट हैड ऑलवेज रिमेन्ड इंडियन सेंट्रिक. ठीक है. 9/11 जो था ना, it has altered the global world order, and many states and especially Pakistan modified its foreign policy, and Pakistan needed to reform its foreign policy, particularly in the context of US and Afghanistan and also India. So as 9/11 was the catastrophic event, and Pakistan being Afghanistan's neighbor, so there it was important strategic location in terms of war on terror, which brought the following changes in its policy. First, that Pakistan's post 9/11 foreign policy was no more Indian centric, and then second was that Pakistan post 9/11 foreign policy made the country a frontline ally of the US in the war on terror. So अच्छा, so if you talk about concluding remarks, मैं कहूँगी कि that Pakistan began with an independent foreign policy in 1947, and then however it tilted towards the west in the period of 7 years due to serious economic and security problems. I told you before, the security problems which were primarily from India and secondarily from Afghanistan. So there were security pressures, and it maintained a policy of close interaction in its security and economic field with the West in general and US in particular. And then in the mid 50s and 80s, and then later it pursued independent to a non-allied foreign policy in the mid 1960s to till end 1970s, and assigned great importance to interaction with the Muslim states. So this was basically a summary, and Pakistan is currently an active player in global efforts for combating religious extremism and terrorism. With a policy of extremism and terrorism, it poses a serious threat to global security as well as Pakistan's internal peace and stability and also economic development. So, Pakistan has made some difficult decisions in pursuing counter-terrorism and for ensuring peace and stability, but and also in the immediate neighborhood, in order to boost its image at an international level and to restore international confidence in the ability of the Pakistan state and government to put their social economic house in order and shape up as the democratically oriented, modern and enlightened Muslim polity that allow its territory to be used by extremist groups. So this was all from me by now, and thank you so much. So kindly like, subscribe, like this video, subscribe this channel. Thank you so much.